The wind carried her mother's last breath across the Arizona night. Half-Apache, half-nothing Rhea Voss was never meant to belong until the moment she refused to disappear. In the shadow of Red Mesa, a cast-out warrior heard an old promise call his name. What if the land itself remembers? Listen. The moon hung low and swollen over broken stone that night, blood red like it had been wounded and was bleeding across the high desert sky. 1887. The wind carried the scent of pinon smoke and sage, the kind of smell that usually meant home. But home was burning. Rhea Voss woke to screams. Not her own. Not yet. She was 22, half Apache, half white, and the world had never let her forget either half. Her mother, Ysme's daughter, had taught her to move quiet, to listen to the ground before it spoke. Tonight, the ground spoke too late. The door of their adobe shack splintered inward with one brutal kick. Torchlight flooded the room like spilled fire. 3 men faces, blackened with soot eyes, glittering under wide-brimmed hats, filled the space. Bounty hunters, scalp takers, the kind who carried warrants from both sides of the border and answered to neither. Rhea's mother was already on her feet, the old Winchester in her hands, barrel steady despite the tremor in her thin arms. "Get out," her mother said, voice low, calm. The same voice that had sung Rhea to sleep through fevers and storms. One of the men laughed, a short, ugly sound. He stepped forward, boots grinding adobe dust into the dirt floor. "We're here for the girl. Half-breed pays double these days. Army's got a buyer." Rhea felt the words hit her like a slap. Half-breed. She'd heard it whispered in Apache camps, shouted in border towns. Tonight, it was spoken like a price tag. Her mother fired. The shot cracked the night open. The lead man staggered, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming dark against his shirt. But there were 3, and they were fast. The second man lunged. A knife flashed. Rhea saw it happen in pieces, too slow, too real. Her mother's body jerked once. A wet gasp. The Winchester clattered to the floor. Blood-bright, impossible amounts spread across the front of her cotton dress, the one she'd mended 100 times with careful stitches. Rhea screamed then. Not words, just raw sound. She threw herself forward, hands reaching for her mother, but rough arms caught her from behind. Rope bit into her wrists, twisted tight. Another woman from the village, old Maria, was already bound, sobbing quietly. A third, young Elena, was dragged in from outside, hair-wild nightgown torn. They were herded like cattle. Rhea kept her eyes on her mother's face. Ysme's daughter. The woman who had never raised her voice in anger. The woman who had taught Rhea the old songs, the ones that remembered the land before the soldiers came. Now that face was slack eyes, open to the ceiling beams, unseeing. Blood pooled beneath her dark against the red earth floor. It seeped into the cracks, into the very dirt their home had been built on. Rhea felt it the slow, deliberate way the earth drank her mother's life. As if the Red Mesa itself was claiming what belonged to it. One of the men yanked Rhea's hair back, forcing her to look at him. "You're coming with us, girl. Quiet now, or you join her." Rhea didn't answer. She couldn't. Her throat was full of ash and grief. They dragged the 3 women outside. Horses stamped in the dark. Torches hissed. The village was silent now, doors barred, windows shuttered. No one would come. No one ever did when the hunters rode through. Rhea was thrown across a saddle, belly down, wrists tied to the cinch. The horse moved, and every jolt sent fresh pain through her ribs. She tasted blood, her own lip bitten through. Behind her, the shack burned. Flames licked the night sky, turning the moon even redder. She twisted her head just enough to see the last glimpse her mother's body lying in the doorway, arms outstretched as if still reaching for the rifle. The firelight painted her in gold and shadow, beautiful even in death. Rhea closed her eyes. In that darkness, something hard and bright ignited inside her chest. Not rage, not yet. A promise. She would not die nameless. She would not die forgotten. She would not let the Red Mesa swallow her the way it had swallowed so many before her. The horse kept moving. The night stretched long and merciless. Somewhere ahead lay the secret silver camp guarded by men in uniform who looked the other way, while the mines ate lives. Somewhere ahead lay Chain's beatings, the slow erasure of whoever she had been. But Rhea Voss, daughter of Ysme's blood child of two worlds that had never wanted her, made her vow in silence as the wind tore at her face. I will live. I will remember. And one day the men who did this will know my name. The moon watched. The desert listened. And the Red Mesa, ancient and patient, waited. This story is about what happens when a girl who was never allowed to belong chooses against every odds to claim her place in the world anyway. It's about the cost of keeping a promise to the dead, and the quiet, unbreakable strength it takes to rise when everything has tried to bury you. Stay with me, because tonight, the night the Red Mesa claimed her mother, is only the beginning. 3 days bled into one long, burning haze. The sun hammered down without mercy, turning the Arizona sand to fire under bare feet. Rhea's wrists were raw from the ropes they'd finally cut only because the knots had swollen too tight to untie. Her lips cracked and bled when she tried to drink the last swallow of water they'd thrown at her. The other two women, Maria and Elena, had stopped crying sometime on the second day. Their silence was worse than the screams. The hunters rode ahead laughing low, passing a bottle between them. They spoke of the silver camp like it was paradise, good pay, easy work, and women to warm the nights. Rhea listened without turning her head. She memorized their voices. The way the tall one with the scarred cheek said half-breed like it tasted sweet. The way the short one spat when he looked at her. On the third evening, the wind changed. It started as a low moan across the flats, then rose sharp and sudden, carrying red dust that stung like glass. The horses shied. The men cursed, pulling bandanas over their faces. A wall of sand rolled toward them, towering alive, swallowing the horizon. Chaos. One horse reared and bolted. Another man was thrown cursing as he hit the ground. Rhea felt the rope slacken for one heartbeat. That was enough. She dropped flat-rolled under the nearest wagon and clawed at the knot with shaking fingers. It gave. She was free. She ran, not toward the hunters, not toward the distant smoke of their camp. She ran straight into the storm. The wind screamed in her ears, sand scouring her skin, filling her mouth. She tasted blood and grit. Her legs burned. Her lungs burned. She kept moving because stopping meant dying. Behind her, she heard shouts muffled, furious, then nothing. The storm ate sound. She stumbled into rock, hard red rock that rose sudden and black against the swirling orange sky. The Red Mesa country. Even the hunters feared it. Too many stories of men walking in and never walking out. Rhea climbed, hands bleeding on sharp stone knees, scraping breath, ragged. She found a narrow crevice barely wide enough for her shoulders and squeezed through. Inside, the wind howled past the opening like a living thing denied its prey. She collapsed against cool stone. Darkness wrapped her. For the first time in 3 days, she let herself shake. Tears came, then hot, silent, mixing with the dust on her cheeks. She saw her mother's face again, the calm eyes, the steady hands on the rifle, the bloom of red across her chest. Rhea pressed her forehead to the rock and whispered the only word she could manage. Ysme. Her mother's name. Her grandmother's name. the name that had once meant safety. She didn't know how long she sat there. Hours, maybe less. The storm raged outside, then slowly quieted to a low moan. When she opened her eyes again, a shadow stood in the crevice entrance. Tall, silent. A man. He wore no hat. Long black hair tied back with a strip of leather. A faded cavalry shirt stolen or taken from a dead man hung loose over deerskin leggings. A knife at his belt? No rifle. His eyes were dark, unreadable, the kind of eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he spoke, voice low and rough, like gravel underfoot. "You're bleeding on my ground." Rhea pushed herself up back against the wall. Every muscle screamed. She tried to stand taller, but her legs trembled. "I'm not staying," she said. Her voice cracked. "Just passing through." He tilted his head, studied the rope burns on her wrists, the bruises blooming on her arms, the way she held herself like something already broken, but refusing to fall. "Passing through," he repeated. Flat. No mockery, just fact. They'll come looking. Let them. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he crouched, picked up a small stone, turned it in his fingers. The storm outside had settled to a whisper. "You Apache?" he asked. "Half." He nodded once, as if that explained everything. "I'm Kael." The name landed heavy. She'd heard it before in whispers around fires and stories told to frighten children. The warrior who'd been cast out. The one who'd broken the old laws to save a white man's life. The one the people no longer claimed. Rhea met his eyes. "They'll kill me if they find me. They'll try." He stood, turned to leave. "Wait." He paused back to her. "My grandmother. Her name was Ysme." Kael went still. Very slowly he turned. Rhea lifted her chin, pulled aside the torn collar of her dress. There, on the hollow of her throat, was the small faded mark, 3 curving lines, like wind over water. The same mark her mother had worn. The same mark Ysme had given her daughters. Kael's breath caught just once, barely audible. He stepped closer, not threatening, careful, like approaching something fragile. "That mark," he said quietly. "I last saw it on a woman who saved my life when I was too young to save hers." Rhea's heart stuttered. She was my grandmother. Silence stretched between them, thick, full of things neither knew how to say. Kael looked away first, toward the opening of the crevice where the last red light of day bled across the rocks. "You can't stay here," he said. "The hunters will track the blood." "I know." He looked back at her. Something shifted in his face, not softness exactly. Recognition. "I swore an oath," once he said, "to Ysme, that no child of her blood would die alone if I could prevent it." Rhea swallowed. "I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm not offering to die." His voice was steady. "I'm offering to walk." She searched his face, saw the weariness there, the old scars, the weight of years spent alone. Why? Because some promises don't fade when the people who made them do. He extended a hand not to pull her up, but to offer it. Rhea stared at it for a long moment. Then she took it. His grip was warm, strong, steady. They stepped out into the dying light. The Red Mesa waited silent, ancient, unforgiving. Behind them, the crevice swallowed the last echo of the storm. Ahead lay narrow canyons, hidden springs paths only the land itself remembered. And somewhere in the distance, the hunters were already riding again. This story is about what it means to keep a promise made long ago, even when the world has changed and the people who asked it are gone. It's about the quiet courage it takes to trust again when trust has cost you everything. Stay with me. Because the shadow that saved her is only just beginning to move. The narrow canyon swallowed them whole. They moved in single file, Kael leading his steps sure on the loose shale where Rhea's boots slipped every few paces. The sun had dropped behind the Red Mesa rim hours ago, leaving only a bruised purple sky and the first scatter of stars. The air turned cold, fast desert cold, the kind that seeps into bones and stays. They found the cave just after full dark. It wasn't much a wide mouth carved into the cliff face, hidden behind a screen of twisted juniper. Inside, the walls were smooth-etched with faint spirals and handprints older than memory. The floor sloped gently upward to a small alcove where wind couldn't reach. Kael built no fire. Too much risk. Instead, he spread a thin blanket from his pack and motioned for Rhea to sit. She did. Slowly. Every joint ached. Her wrists still throbbed under the rope burns, now crusted with dried blood and dust. She pulled her knees to her chest, wrapped her arms around them, and stared at the darkness beyond the opening. Kael settled across from her back against the rock, knees drawn up. He didn't speak for a long time, just watched the night outside, listening to things she couldn't hear. Finally, he broke the silence. "You're shaking." Rhea looked down at her hands. They were trembling. She clenched them into fists. "I'm fine. You're not." She met his eyes then. Dark, steady, not judging, just seeing. "I keep seeing her," she said. The words came out small. My mother. The way she fell, the way the blood just kept spreading, like it wanted to cover everything. Kael didn't move, didn't offer comfort. He simply listened. "I should have fought harder," Rhea whispered. "I should have grabbed the rifle, or run sooner, or stop." His voice was quiet, firm. "You did what you could." She knew that. Rhea's throat closed. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not now. I don't even know who I am anymore," she said. "Apache won't claim me because I'm half white. Whites won't claim me because I'm half Apache. I've spent my whole life trying to be small enough for both sides to ignore. And look where it got me." Kael shifted. Just a little. Enough to face her fully. "I know that feeling." She looked up. He stared at the faint spirals on the wall, tracing them with his eyes. "I was born to lead," he said. "The elders chose me young. Said the signs were clear, my mother's blood, my father's strength. They taught me the old ways, the songs, the stories. Told me one day the people would follow me." His voice stayed even. But there was a weight to it, like stones settling at the bottom of a river. Then came the raid. A white family wagon, broken child dying of fever. I was scouting alone. I could have left them. The law said, leave them. The elders said, leave them. But I saw the boy's eyes. Same age my little brother had been when he died of the same fever years before. Rhea held her breath. I brought them water, medicine. Carried the boy to safety. The family lived. The boy lived. He paused. The cave seemed to lean in closer. The elders called it betrayal. Said I'd put white lives above Apache ones. Cast me out. Took my name from the circle. Told the young ones I was dead to them. Rhea felt something shift inside her chest, sharp, unexpected. You saved them anyway. I did. And you'd do it again? Kael looked at her then. Really looked. I already have. The words hung between them. Rhea swallowed. Because of the oath. To Ysme. He nodded once. She found me after the exile. Half starved, half mad. She didn't ask questions, just fed me. Gave me a blanket. Told me the land doesn't care about bloodlines, only what you do on it. She made me swear no child of her line would ever walk alone if I could walk beside them. Rhea touched the mark on her throat again. The 3 curving lines felt warmer now. Alive. I'm that child, she said softly. You are. Silence again. Thicker this time. Full of things neither knew how to name. Outside, a coyote called Lonely Distant. Then another sound. Hooves, not many. 2 horses, moving slow, careful, hunting. Kael was on his feet in an instant, knife already in hand. Rhea stood too, heart slamming against her ribs. Jericho Flint, Kael said. Low. Certain. Rhea knew the name. Everyone did. The blacksmith who'd turned bounty hunter after the army took his land. The one who never missed. The one who took scalps for sport when the price was right. They're close, Kael said. Rhea's breath came short. We can't outrun them. Not in the dark. Not like this. Kael looked at her. Saw the fear in her eyes. Saw the exhaustion. Saw the way her hands still shook. I can draw them off, he said. You stay here. Wait till dawn. Head east. There's a spring now. The word came out harder than she meant. Kael raised an eyebrow. I'm done running alone, she said. You swore an oath. So did I. Tonight, when I watched my mother die, I swore I wouldn't die nameless, and I won't let you die for me. He studied her face. Long. Searching. You're sure I'm terrified, she admitted. But I'm sure. Kael exhaled. Once. Slow. Then he nodded. We moved together. He stepped to the cave mouth, listening. The hoofbeats were closer now. Deliberate. Rhea came up beside him, shoulder to shoulder. The night outside was black except for the faint silver of starlight on red rock. Somewhere out there, Jericho Flint was coming. And for the first time in her life, Rhea didn't feel half of anything. She felt whole. This story is about the moment when 2 outcasts realize their scars match, and that matching might be the only thing strong enough to keep them alive. It's about the terrifying freedom of choosing to stand beside someone when every instinct screams to run alone. Stay with me, because the whispers of the broken oath are about to become a roar. The narrow canyon closed around them like a fist. Red rock walls rose sheer on both sides, barely wide enough for 2 people to walk abreast. The sky above was a thin, angry strip of bruised purple, the last of the daylight bleeding out. Wind howled down the slot, carrying sand that stung like needles against exposed skin. Rhea's breath came short and shallow. Every step echoed too loud in the tight space. Behind them, the hoofbeats had grown steady. Deliberate, no longer hunting closing. Kael moved ahead, silent, scanning the walls. He stopped at a place where the canyon pinched even narrower, where an ancient ledge jutted out over a drop that fell 30 feet to jagged stone below. Carved into the rock face were the old mark spiral's hands, animals frozen in mid-leap. Apache marks, older than memory. A single narrow path led up the ledge, then nothing. No way out except back the way they'd come. He turned to Rhea. This is it. She looked up at the ledge, then down at the drop. Her stomach twisted. We climb, we wait. The wind rose sharper. Sand began to swirl in earnest, a low moan building to a scream. Another storm. Smaller than the one that had freed her, but vicious in these tight walls. It would blind them, bury them, or give them cover. Kael pulled her against the rocks, shielding her with his body, as the first gust slammed through. Stay low, he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Rhea pressed her back to the stone, felt the carvings under her palms cool, worn, smooth by centuries. She thought of her mother's hand on her shoulder guiding her through the dark as a child. Thought of Ysme's voice telling stories of the old ones who spoke to the land and were answered. The hoofbeats stopped. Then voices low-clipped carried on the wind. Jericho Flint's voice cut through clearest, Rough, familiar from wanted posters and campfire warnings. They're here. Canyon dead ends. We got 'em boxed. Another man, Captain Elias Crow's scout, by the clipped military tone, answered. Crow wants the girl alive. The half-breed pays extra. The Apache, dead or alive. Preference dead. Rhea's heart slammed against her ribs. She looked at Kael. He met her eyes. Something raw flickered there, regret maybe. Or resolve. The storm hit full force. Sand roared in blinding choking. The world narrowed to red haze and howling wind. Rhea tasted grit, felt it grind between her teeth. She reached for Kael's arm, found it held tight. He leaned close, mouth at her ear. I have to tell you something. She nodded. Couldn't speak. Ysme didn't just feed me that night, he said. She made me swear, on her blood, on mine, that no child of her line, no one carrying her mark, would die under white hands if I could stop it, even if it cost me everything. Rhea's breath caught. You swore that I did. She stared at him through the swirling sand, saw the lines etched deep around his eyes, the weight he'd carried alone for years. And you've kept it. Till now. The wind screamed louder. Voices outside were lost in it. But the hoofbeats started again, closer. Hooves scraping stone, men dismounting, coming on foot. Kael drew his knife, handed it to her handle first. Take it. Rhea hesitated. The blade was old, worn, but sharp. Her mother's knife had been taken that first night. This one felt heavier. Final. I can't, you can. He closed her fingers around the handle. If it comes to it, he said, use it on me. Not them. Me. I won't let them take you alive. Tears burned Rhea's eyes, mixed with sand. She shook her head. No. Kael's grip tightened on her hand. Rhea the Storm thinned for one brutal second. Jericho Flint stepped into view at the canyon mouth, broad shoulders scarred, face rifle leveled. Behind him, two more men. Crow's men, uniforms half hidden under civilian coats. Jericho's eyes found Rhea first, then Kael. He raised the rifle. Kael moved fast, silent, putting himself between her and the muzzle. The shot cracked. Kael jerked. Blood bloomed dark on his shoulder. He staggered back, hit the rock wall, slid halfway down the ledge. The drop yawned behind him, black hungry. Rhea screamed. She lunged forward, knife in hand, dropped to her knees beside him. Kael's face was pale, breath ragged, hand pressed to the wound. Blood seeped between fingers. Go, he rasped. Up the ledge. Run. She shook her head. Tears streamed down her face, cutting tracks through the dust. I'm not leaving you. Jericho advanced, slow, rifle still raised. End of the road, girl. Rhea stood, legs shaking, knife trembling in her grip. But she stood. She looked at Jericho. Really looked. Saw the weariness in his eyes. The old grief carved into the lines of his face. Heard the stories whispered about him, the daughter he'd lost years ago. Half-Apache, taken by fever, buried in unmarked ground because no one would claim her. Rhea stepped forward. One step, then another. Jericho's rifle wavered. She reached him. He didn't fire. Rhea lifted the knife. Slowly, deliberately. Jericho tensed. She brought the blade down, not on him. On the rope still dangling from his belt, the spare length he'd carried since binding her 3 days ago. One clean cut, the rope fell away. Jericho stared at it, then at her. Rhea spoke, voice steady despite the storm in her chest. You lost a daughter like me once. His jaw clenched, eyes glistened. I did. Then you know what it costs. Silence. Wind howled between them. Jericho looked past her to Kael bleeding against the rock, to the drop behind him, then back to Rhea. He lowered the rifle. 1 inch, then another. The weapon clattered to the stone. He stepped back. "Walk away," he said. Voice rough, broken. "Both of you." Rhea didn't move. "Go," Jericho said again. Softer. She turned, ran to Kael, helped him up, arm around his waist, his weight heavy against her shoulder. They moved, slow, painful, up the narrow ledge path. Behind them, Jericho watched, didn't follow. The storm swallowed the canyon again. Rhea and Kael disappeared into the red haze. This story is about the moment when an old oath, made in grief and kept in silence, finally finds its purpose, not in dying for someone, but in giving another person the chance to live without fear. It's about the shattering power of recognition when one broken soul sees another and chooses mercy instead of vengeance. Stay with me, because the price of the old blood oath has only just begun to be paid. Dawn broke slow and quiet over the Red Mesa. A thin line of gold edged the eastern rim, spilling pale light down the red rock walls. The storm had spent itself in the night sand, settled in soft drifts, wine gone to a whisper. The canyon still smelled of dust and blood. Rhea supported Kael's weight against her shoulder as they climbed the last narrow path to the high ground. His breathing was shallow, ragged. The wound in his shoulder had stopped bleeding freely, but the cloth she'd torn from her skirt was soaked dark. Every step pulled a low sound from him, more breath than groan. They reached the rim just as the sun cleared the horizon. Below them, the canyon mouth opened wide. And there they were. Captain Elias Crow rode at the head of 12 men uniforms, half hidden under dusters' rifles glinting in the new light. Horses stamped restless. Crow's face was hard eyes narrowed against the glare. He lifted a hand. The riders fanned out, blocking the only way down. Crow's voice carried clear across the still air. "End of the line, Voss. You and the breed. Step forward, hands empty." Rhea felt Kael tense. His good arm tightened around her waist, not to hold himself up, but to steady her. She looked at him. His face was gray sweat beading on his brow despite the morning chill. "We can't run," she whispered. "I know." Crow spurred his horse forward a few paces. The animal's hooves kicked red dust. "You've cost me enough," he said. "That silver vein stays secret. You too don't leave this mesa alive." Rhea straightened. Let Kael lean against the rock, stepped forward alone. The wind moved her hair across her face. She pushed it back. "You're wrong," she said, voice steady, louder than she felt. Crow laughed short cold. "Girl, you're half Apache and half nothing. No one's coming for you." Behind her, Kael shifted, tried to stand taller, failed. Rhea kept her eyes on Crow. Someone already did. A new sound than hooves from the north rim. Not many. Steady, deliberate. Sage Morrow appeared first. She rode a wiry bay hair, tied-back face streaked with trail dust. The woman who had once sat at Rhea's mother's table sharing coffee and stories on quiet evenings. The woman who had slipped away in the dark 3 nights ago while the hunters slept. Behind Sage came 5 riders, older men faces lined with years and weather. Apache, gray hair braided with eagle feathers, rifles across their saddles. Not warriors on the warpath. Men who had chosen peace long ago. And beside them, a single rider in a dark coat, Marshal Harlan Tate federal badge catching the sunrise. Crow's men shifted. Rifles came up. Sage reined in. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Stand down, Elias. It's over." Crow's face twisted. "You." Sage met his stare without flinching. "I told them everything. The mine, the bribes, the girls you took to keep it quiet." One of the older Apache men spoke, then low calm in the old tongue. The others nodded. Marshal Tate raised a hand. "Captain Crow," he said. "You're under arrest. Federal warrant. Conspiracy, murder, kidnapping. Step down." Crow's hand dropped toward his pistol. Jericho Flint appeared then alone on foot rifle slung over his shoulder. He walked out from the shadows of the canyon wall, face unreadable. He stopped between the two groups, looked at Rhea, then at Crow. "I'm done," Jericho said, voice rough, tired. "No more." Crow's eyes widened. "You son of a," Jericho raised his rifle not at Rhea or Kael. At Crow, the captain froze. Marshal Tate dismounted. Slow, deliberate. "Hands up, Captain." Crow's men hesitated, looked at Jericho, looked at the Apache elders, looked at the marshal's badge. One by one, rifles lowered. Crow was the last. He stared at Rhea long, venomous. Then he raised his hands. They took him quietly, bound his wrists, led him away. Jericho stayed. He looked at Rhea again. "I'm sorry," he said, "for what happened to your mother. For what I almost did." Rhea swallowed. "I know." He nodded once, turned, walked down the canyon path alone. The sun climbed higher. Rhea turned back to Kael. He had slid to one knee, blood fresh on his shirt again. She dropped beside him. From the north rim, another figure appeared, small bent, wrapped in a dark shawl. Ysme. Rhea's breath caught. The old woman moved with careful steps, aided by one of the elders. White hair braided tight, eyes sharp as ever. She reached them, knelt, touched Kael's face with trembling fingers. "My boy," she whispered. Kael opened his eyes. "Grandmother." Ysme looked at Rhea then. Really looked. "You carry her mark," she said, "and her fire." Rhea's throat closed. Ysme reached out, took Rhea's hand, placed it over Kael's wound. "Hold him," she said. "The land will help." They stayed there as the sun rose fully. The elders formed a quiet circle. Sage stood beside Marshal Tate, watching. No one spoke. Ysme worked in silence, clean cloth herbs from a small pouch, steady hands that remembered every wound she'd ever tended. Kael's breathing eased. Color crept back into his face. When the bleeding slowed, Ysme sat back. "He will live," she said, "because you both chose to." Rhea looked at Kael. He met her eyes. No words, just the quiet understanding that had grown between them in 3 days of running, hiding, bleeding. The elders spoke then, soft words in the old tongue. A blessing, a welcome. One of them stepped forward. "You are not cast out anymore," he said to Kael. "The circle remembers." Kael closed his eyes. A single tear tracked down his cheek. Rhea felt it too, the weight lifting, not gone, but lighter. She stood, walked to the edge of the rim. The Red Mesa stretched out below vast, red ancient. She turned back. Kael was on his feet now, slow leaning on Ysme. He walked to Rhea. They stood side by side, facing the sunrise. She reached for his hand. He took it. Fingers laced, firm. No rush, no new oath spoken, no promise demanded. Just the silence of two people who had walked through fire and found the other side still standing. The sun climbed higher. Light spilled across the mesa like forgiveness. And for the first time in her life, Rhea Voss felt she belonged exactly where she was. This story is about the quiet miracle of choosing to stand between worlds when every voice tells you to pick a side. It's about how an old promise to protect, to remember to see, can heal not just the one who made it, but everyone it touches. It's about identity not as blood or borders, but as the choices we make when the dawn finally breaks. And that dawn has finally come. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for listening and for allowing this story to speak to your heart. The Wild West still holds countless truths, some painful, some tender, all worth remembering. Stay with us, subscribe, comment, and invite others to discover these untamed stories. From our hearts to yours. Thank you for being part of this journey. Aviso legal barra disclaimer. Each story shared here is produced for storytelling enjoyment. Certain scenes may include fictional or dramatized elements inspired by historical circumstances. Although AI tools assist us in visuals narration and script development, the emotional tone editing and quality control are conducted by people to ensure meaningful experiences. We fully uphold YouTube's policies, using no deceptive recreations or impersonations of real individuals. All creative resources are properly licensed. Unauthorized copying, re-uploading, or remixing is not permitted. Thank you for supporting the effort behind every episode we create.